Common sense tells me that we have to have a new funding model beginning in 2015, but it's too late for 2014. I know that Labor wanted to try and tie the coalition into the future for at least past 2 elections. But the way our system works is that no government can bind any future government. What one government does, another government can undo. And I made it very clear before the election that I didn't buy up to the Labor Party model. We said that we would have the same funding envelope, and we will. But I also made it very clear that I didn't support the central command and control features that were coming from Canberra, and I won't have that in a model. Now, we assumed that this could last several years, but it's quite clear that it would be irresponsible of me, as the Minister for Education, to try and implement a model that is effectively unimplementable. We said we'd have exactly the same funding envelope as the Labor government, and that's exactly what we will achieve. Our funding envelope over the forward estimates will be precisely the same as Labor's, so we are keeping our promise.
Talk about the funding envelope, but about a week short of the election, you said you can vote Liberal or Labor and you'll get exactly the same amount of funding for your school. That's not an envelope, that's a promise to every school you'll get the same regardless of the outcome. Are you going to be keeping your promise?
We are going to keep our promise, which is that we have exactly the same funding envelope available to us as the Labor Party promised before the election.
But not for each school. That's not what you're saying today.
What I'm saying is that we will have exactly the same funding envelope available, Hugh, and we will work through with the states and territories to ensure that that is equitably distributed.
Well, the real Tony Abbott is now starting to reveal himself to the Australian community. He has just deceived Australian families, school children, teachers, communities. He went to the election saying that he was on a unity ticket in terms of schools funding and the Gonski reforms. At no stage did he tell Australians that he did not believe in the equity principle underpinning the Gonski reforms, and that is that more money needs to go into education, but particularly to flow to children who need it the most. Now that's dishonest, it's misleading Australians, and I think it's going to be very interesting because the whole issue of trust and the whole issue of honesty became central to the attacks that the Coalition made on former Prime Minister Julia Gillard over her statements with regard to carbon pricing. The same thing will now be levelled at Tony Abbott when it comes to education funding. And the whole country will now be unnerved about the fact that not only is he handing over the audit to the big end of town, but he's now essentially going back to the old scheme of the Howard years, which led to huge levels of disadvantage in public education, and where those schools who already had lots got more and those who had nothing got very little.